everybody, welcome back to another episode of Garage Time TV. Here I am, Marshall, and as you can tell by my mess and the panels and some of the stuff behind me, we are doing body work. I've already jumped on all of the fenders, so both front fenders and the rear fenders are taken care of, and one of the little cover valance things for the running boards is done. But we still have the hood, all the doors, both doors to do in the cab, and the bed to do still. But I'm going to show you how I'm doing this on the hood, just because it's a big flat even surface and there's a little bit of previous body work on this thing. So I figured I would do this. So I am no body person at all because I really don't like it, and it takes forever, and if you mess up then you got to go again, and it's going to be as good as it's going to be. Don't take any really tips from me unless you're like super desperate or something. But I've done some of them, as you can see in the back there. They're okay. Are they gonna have waves in them? Yes. Are they gonna be a little uneven? Sure, of course, but it's not this. So what we're gonna do is, I'm just gonna show you how to do it on one, how I'm doing it on one, and then we're just gonna apply that principle to all of it. I think I said last episode it's just gonna take some time because it is so time consuming to do all these panels one by one. I was just sanding them with my DA sander and like some 60 grit, but I went to Harbor Freight and I picked up this bad boy. This is their surface conditioner stripper, and I did a whole fender in about a minute and a half. When I used to take 60 grit sandpaper and go through 3 or 4 pieces of sandpaper to try and get all this off and all the scaling and all that awfulness, and now it's done in about 3-4 minutes. Down to bare metal. So it's much faster, so it's also less messy than like sandblasting. So really recommend one of these. It comes with the little drums, but you can get different grits and stuff. This is 40 grit, so this really eats it up. So what I'm gonna do is set you up in a couple different spots, and I'll probably set up the other camera and get some good shots. But we're just gonna strip this thing. I'll probably do one whole side so you can see the before and after with this thing, because it does make quite a difference. And then we can start filling it in, and I'll show you all that stuff. So we've made some progress. You can see all this nice shiny stuff and some more of that paint coming through. And the original color is actually pretty cool. This would have been maybe potentially a good candidate for like a patina truck, but that's just not really what I'm going for. But looks pretty good. This stripping tool is doing really good. Getting all down to the nice bare metal, just stripping it all off. You can kind of cock it at an angle and like kind of eat into it, or you just keep it flat and do a lot of passes and it gets through it. But we're making progress, and it's just going to be more of this stripping of it. Going to need to pull off the logos there. Looks like we do have, from where that other body filler was, that pink stuff, got a little bit of dent here. We've got another one up here, so I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that one. No, there's another piece inside of there, so we have to fill that one. This one we should be able to, use our metalworking tools and put something flat there and try and hammer that back. So that should be a little bit better, get that looking good. So we're just going to keep trucking here. I'm going to save you all the boring of the back and forth of watching me strip paint. Then I'll bring it back as soon as this is all ready to go. Luckily it doesn't look like we're going to need a whole lot of body filler. Just going to clean out these hood ornament spots, and so looking pretty good. So we're just going to keep on cleaning this up, and I'll bring it back when it's all finished.
A few moments later.
Alright, so we've got the whole driver's side stripped. We still have to take off the emblems, but we'll do that in a little bit. But we got all the way around them. All the surface rust and stuff's taken off. We're gonna let the tool kind of cool down for a little bit. It's not overheating or anything. I just want to kind of give it a break because that was a big area. So we're gonna move on to is this little section that needs a repair. So hopefully it kind of shows up there that there's a little wiggle here. Hopefully you guys can see that. See how there's just a wiggle there? That's not perfectly straight. So we went to also to Harbor Freight and picked up their little Maddox hammer and dolly set, and it has this little the dolly on the back side. You can see it kind of follows that curve, and then a nice flat hammer. So what we're going to do is we're going to probably come to the other side like this, put a dolly underneath it, and we should be able to shape the metal to the dolly and straighten this out. So what I'm working on now is there's like a little dip back here. And maybe you'll be able to see if it'll show up for us. There's a gap of light in there, and that's a low spot. So if we hit from the underside towards the dolly, it should flatten out against the dolly and form back towards shape. So we're just going to keep working this to raise up that low spot. So now we don't have that wiggle on the end, that up and down. It's still a little bit, and a little concave area down in here that was all full of filler is also popped back out from the backside. Now unfortunately the one at the front has an inner covering, so we can't get to it without like a stud puller and everything, so we're gonna have to do that with filler. But there are a little bit of lines in there that you may be able to see when we get the light through it. But when we put just a little skim coat of filler on that, all these little low spots will get filled in. And if there's any high spots, we just tap it right back down and it should smooth it out. Not going to be perfect, but it's better than a big glob of filler on that, and it took just a second to try and hammer that out, straighten out some of this metal. So I think this side is okay. I don't see anything crazy. I do know that we have a little bit of metal repair we're going to have to do on the underside. One thing you can see is, you can probably hear the difference. Smooth and then rough. And that rough surface, you may be able to see the little pinholes from just water and moisture being stuck here, whether from driving or whatever it is, but it happens to be right here in the front. And this is what I've been battling on all the panels. So I have to do like a skim coat on top of this to fill all those little tiny holes, and then sand it nice and flat so it's smooth and then not rough like that. Got a little hole to fill there. Might have to tap some of that down, but not too bad overall right there. So we're just going to clean this other side, pop off the emblems, get underneath all those. Then we'll flip this over. I'm not going to use the tool to clean the underside. Probably just use a wire wheel to really just knock a lot of it loose. Not super worried about the inside looking as good as the outside, because you don't really look at it. So we're going to pop these off, clean that off. What I did notice is that there are some holes here and here. I think they're on the other side too, yeah. So I don't know what goes here. So if you know what goes there, you know, put it down in the comments. I don't know what goes there. I'm gonna have to look that up. But anyway, let's pull those off, finish cleaning up this last side, and do the same thing over here. Then we'll flip this over and do a little bit of metal repair on the front. And I think we've got one on the big back support as well.
1 hour later.
We've got our hood flipped upside down. Both sides are nice and clean. So it's all taken care of. We were able to get the emblems out. No problem there. And this is what we've got to work on, is in these little pockets. So dirt and debris get built up in here, and it just rots these poor corners out. They're just completely gone. But the good thing is there's some screws So we've got a really big screwdriver, so I'm hoping that we can loosen these up and get that out. And we can work on it on the bench instead of on the hood. It'll make it a lot easier. And we'll have to probably just cut straight across here. I've got a bucket of scrap metal over there, and hopefully we can get that repaired. I'm not holding my breath. This stuff is pretty thin, and my welder loves to blow through the thin stuff, so I'm not super confident in it, but I mean, we've got to get that fixed because that's pretty bad. The other spot is here where this kind of brace is. It's not really structural, it just kind of keeps the hood from caving in on the top side. The other side looks great, but if we had some thin seat channel, we could just cut this off right at the bracket and then, you know, weld in a new piece and be all good to go. But I don't know, we don't have anything really like that. We'd have to form something, so we're just gonna do one thing at a time. We're gonna go for this first, see if we can pop this out. Also be a good time to clean it, get all this flaking paint off of there, and probably some black paint wouldn't hurt on something like this. I don't know, maybe just primer, because we'll probably want to color match the inside. Haven't really thought that far. But again, I'm not going to be doing a whole bunch of body work on the inside of the hood, just these here. Probably fix these where the hood trim's supposed to come through, and see if we can pop off this trim here to get that clean underneath there and clean this thing up as well. So lots to do, but let's start here. Well, I tried to get these screws out, and there's 6. One came out, 2 got stripped, and the other 3 just didn't want to move. So we had to get a little creative. What I ended up doing is just cutting it out. So this one was able just to snap off. So there's that. And it's still a little warm, but we were able to get that out of there. So I cut along here, not super good metal here, so we might have to skip welding along that. And I just cut it here. So we're gonna have to, you know, reshape that. And then over here I had to do the same thing. This one luckily was more of a pretty square shape, so that one isn't gonna be so bad. I was digging through my little tub over there of scrap pieces, and I have some old floor pan from our Fiat 124 project, and so this one's a little bit thicker than some of the other stuff I have in there, but still this is some pretty thick stuff compared to what I'm trying to use with it. So I'm gonna have to dig a little bit more to see if I can find something that's a little bit more rigid. Good thing is it's near the outsides, it's not super structural. This is some other floor pan pieces, but it's just not big enough. So I'm gonna have to dig around in that tub and see what I can find, but I think this one is enough to do one corner to shave off this edge. See if we can weld it and just kind of mold it as it's welded. Maybe we can try and get a little bit of this curve in it before we stick it in there, so we don't have to fight it. But we're gonna have to break out the welder. And that's back there on the other side of all of this. So I think we're gonna have to hold off on this part until tomorrow. It's pretty late in the day working on the other fender before I got started on this video. So I think we're going to clean up, and I desperately need a shower, and it's almost dinner time. So we're gonna take advantage of that, and I think call this good for today. But tomorrow we will jump back on it, start doing some welding. I'll probably do a practice one. That way I look like I know what I'm doing for the next one. So we're just gonna call it good for today, and we'll jump back on it tomorrow.
The next day.
Okay, next day, we're back out here. And it's supposed to be like off and on raining all day. So it's not super great for body filler and primer, but you know, we've got our lovely Barney cover above us. So we're gonna work with what we got. But we're right where we left off. We need to start doing some metal work. So I wanted to go pick up, I ran a couple errands this morning, and I wanted to go pick up some thinner flex core wire to work with sheet metal, because what I've got is 0.030, which is not super thin, and it's not super good for sheet metal. It actually blows holes in it, and that's what I was chasing with when I was working on some other panels. So I went to go look and see if I could find some flex core that's thinner, but it's really hard to find, or it's gonna be a while to ship it here. So we're gonna work with what we got. Maybe I can go through my stash a little bit harder and see if I can find something just a little bit thicker. That way it just doesn't blow through. I was using some pretty thin stuff and it was just knocking holes, and I was chasing the holes, and I was spending more time filling holes than I was welding what I needed to, so it was just a waste of time. So no luck on that, but we're just going to see what we can do. I'm going to rummage through my bucket of scraps. I don't have a whole lot of metal scrap because I don't do a whole lot of metal work. So I'm going to rummage through those and see if we can start recreating some of our old pieces. Luckily these aren't structural, it's more of just an inside cover. So if we tack weld it a lot and then just, you know, use some filler to join it together, then it should be just fine. Again, it's not structural, it's more of just to hold on to the little spring catch piece here in the latch. So not super worried about it. It's still really solid the way it is, and we probably could fake it to make it look a little better. And by that, I mean if we just like rounded this off and just kind of made it look nice, we could probably get away with it. But I don't know if we should do that. I mean, because if whatever we cut off, and if we don't like it, then we have to go back and redo all of it. Plus it's got this edge on here. Let me grab my marker and see if we can render something up that actually may be an option. But then I'm worried if I don't like it, I'm gonna have to redo all of that, and that's quite a bit. So let me think on this for a second and I'll bring you back. All right, so I don't know how well it's gonna show on the camera, but there's a curve here and I just used a cutoff wheel to create my angle. I just went from where it touches here, brought it down until it touches at the top there, and just drew a line. So I drew a line across here and then kind of carried it onwards, and we would have to get a flap disc to kind of shape it out. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. Then we'll smooth this all down to kind of contour the edge while still being structural to help hold it on. I mean, this thing is like on. I'm moving the whole hood. This thing is totally fine not having those corners. So while I'm still debating on this, which I think I may go this route, I'm gonna get second opinion on it, but I think I may do that. We're gonna move to this piece over here. This is a piece that also needs to be repaired. This is something I can't really help. I've got to really do this, especially when you open the hood. This is like one of the first things you're gonna see is that back support there. So we're gonna cut out here. We've got some lines on the other side, up and around, and then maybe we'll be able to use our piece here, kind of make a flat piece, measure our edges, fold it over, make like a C channel, stick it on there, and then grind the angle that this one is, and we kind of use this as our template. So we're going to cut this out, do some rust treatment in here, some rust stop kind of spray, then we'll shoot some paint down in there to quit it from continuing to rust, and then we'll start forming up our new piece. So we got that treated, did some rust spray on there to stop it, and then we shot some Rust-Oleum on top of it to kind of seal it. I sprayed down in there too, so that should be taken care of for a while. But what we did is we cut out a little piece of template here. This is some like ram board type stuff. They use it for like walkways and stuff. You can get a big roll of it at the Home Depot or Lowe's or something. They make smaller rolls. I just got a really big roll. It's good to have that extra stuff. They use it for like painting and things like that. But what I did is I made a little template here, and I'm gonna just lap weld it on top of what's already there. And looks pretty close. We do have a gap at the bottom, but tap with the hammer and that should lay it flat. We got a little gap on this side from where it's just been eaten away, and I'm not super worried about that. I mean, we're gonna have hinges here, and you know, all this stuff is gonna be here. So I'm not super worried about it. I just want to have something here to block that, to make sure that it's all covered. It's not the most pretty looking thing. So let's cut this out of some metal, and then we'll kind of form it, and we'll do a test fit. Our template is made, and it looks pretty good. We do have a gap at the top here, but we'll just take the hammer and smash that flat. Probably wouldn't hurt to take a little bit more off of this back edge to really get that angle down a little bit more so it's a little closer. There's that little bit of a gap. Again, we'll just leave it, because again, all this is going to be here. It's going to be way back. You're not really going to be looking for it. So just to make sure that we don't have that. So we'll be able to put that back on there, kind of sort of straight-ish, something like that. And I'm just going to lap weld it. and that should do the job for us. So we're gonna clean off as much as we can of this surface stuff out here to get a good clean surface. And then we're gonna have to haul it in there close to the welder because I don't really have a thick enough extension cord and I don't have enough space to roll the card out. Don't judge the mess. Okay, there's a lot going on here. But we're gonna have to haul this in there to do this. So, other update, did get a second opinion on our rounded cowl piece here. We're gonna do it. So we're gonna go around here and you can see I kind of followed that curve. Then we'll take our flap disc and try and make it nice and curved so it doesn't look like, you know, we cut it all out. And then we'll shape this as well. It will still maintain its structural strength. Just trimming off those edges. This 90-degree bend that's back here adds all the rigidity. So that's all I'm really worried about, is we'll do that. So let's fix that first. We'll haul it in there, get that all taken care of. Then we'll bring it back out. And then I'm not gonna worry about the bottom at this very minute. What I wanna do is flip over and start doing some filler work for some of these little dents that are in here, especially like this one. It's able to pop it out a little bit. You can kind of see where I was hammering, but not quite perfect, but filler will take care of that. So let's take care of that, cut these, dress it up, then flip, and then we can start working on some filler. So it's a little tight in here, but I've got my flap disc, plugging that in, and I'm going to clean up all of this surface. That way we'll have a good welding surface, and it's a little tight, so we're going to do what we can, but we just got to get it cleaned up and then we can start tacking. So now we're going to start welding. I have to plug it in here. Lights go out, welder goes in, and I've got it on the lowest setting I can. I tried to go find that wire, but just no luck. So we're just gonna take our time, just baby tack these things on, and do our absolute best to try and get a good round here. There's some fresh metal there. Oh, pop the fuse. Try again. All right, there we go. That's what happens when you work in a regular two-car garage. So we're going to feed out a little bit of wire, fresh end, awesome. And we're going to line it up as best we can and just kind of go for it. Again, this is going to be hidden for the most part. I'd like not to have to do any filler body work on this because I hate it. And we'll see if we can just get this kind of tacked in there, and maybe we can just hide it under some paint. So, setting all the way down, wire feeds between the 2 and the 3. Let's see how this goes for us. See if I get a good tack on this side. Well, we're still blowing through it. Knew that was going to happen, but also it doesn't help that we're welding to like corroded metal. So we're just going to keep working our way around it. This side is all up because of those 2 bumps. So maybe we'll just tack on this side and start to work it down that way. I don't know. We have to get creative. But we're just going to work through this and see what we can do. Well, we've got a couple tacks on it. We did a couple on the top. That one blew through. And then on this side, we've got a couple there. Truly, what I'm just kind of going for is just some basic attachment. I know it's gonna be really hot, so I'm not gonna touch that. Let it cool for a little bit. I'll grab my air gun and just air quench it. That way it'll cool. Then I can take my hammer, just kind of mold it at the end here, start hammering that down, and maybe we can start working this way down just to, you know, get it to seat a little bit better. Probably get rid of that gap too. So we're just gonna keep working on this, and I'll show you when it's all set.
A few moments later.
Well, that's as good as I want it to go, but if you look here, you know, 5, 6 feet away, it looks pretty good. till you get close and you see my Stevie Wonder welds are not the best, but I mean, it's in there. It's still a little hot, so don't touch that. But it does look pretty decent. I left a gap on the side, and I'm sure you're wondering why I did that. It's not because the template was not cut right and the gap is, you know, it's strategic as to why I left it there. We've got to have drainage for the future so we don't rust out again. That's the master plan. So that's why we've got our gap there. A little bit of gap at the bottom. You know, it's, again, it's not super structural. There's plenty more that's going to hold up this hood and the whole other side. It's all spot welded and stuff. I'm not super worried about it. It just covers it. Once we put some paint over it and stuff, you'll just never see it. Again, all going to be covered by springs and all sorts of other good hinge stuff. It just covers the grossness that it was before. Next on our to-do list is to trim these, and then we'll get the grinder and smooth it all out and make that look good too. I already like this cutting the rounded corner better, considering it's a gazillion times faster. We did the driver's side first, and you can see we just used our flap disc to follow the curve, and it's all completely gone, at least visible here. And that curve is not too bad. We didn't have to go as steep, so maybe we need to do a little more trim there, but we didn't have to go as steep as what we marked. But I still think that looks pretty good. I think that would look kind of normal, rather than going all the way. So now we're just going to do the same thing over here. Cut that out, grind it smooth, and shoot a little primer on there, and we should be okay. That means we can take this back out, start doing some body filler, because the sun decided to join us today. Well, we were able to get both of those cut out, nice and rounded. I think it looks pretty good. I think it's kind of how it's supposed to be. I mean, unless you really want to pop the hood, when you're looking at the truck, you pop the hood, and then you look up. That's the only time you're really going to see that. So I'm okay with that. We'll be able to treat underneath here as well so it doesn't keep rusting through. And our little patch over there looks great from here. So that's all that matters. But now we get to do the fun part of carrying this huge hood over all of our already pre-done fenders. Don't drop it. In between our, you know, shade and getting it back on our sawhorses. Why do I do this to myself? Almost there. That was easy. No problem at all. So we're going to start moving on into the filler. I'll show you what I'm using here, but we can kind of see, I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, all the little tiny pinholes. I'd mentioned those earlier, and we really need to fill all those in along with our one dent here. So we're probably going to go from this ridge line here and then back to where it starts to flatten out and those pinholes disappear right around here. So we're going to come around, probably around this way and down. That's a big area. So I want to kind of break it down into sections, do just the front here with this, so probably this area here. If we got extra, we'll come down into this, and then we'll attack the sides separate. But what I've been using is this U-Pole Gold, UP0745, and it comes with a hardener. In about 20 minutes on a normal 75-degree day like we've been having here lately, that'll set up in about 15 to 20 minutes. It does come with the hardener. So what we'll do is we'll scoop it out. What I like to use is like an old notebook. Some people use cardboard and stuff. I'm just not a big fan of the cardboard. It absorbs some of the hardener and kind of messes up your ratio. You should be putting about 2% of this for the amount that you pull out of the body filler. So we're gonna mix this up. I'm gonna show you guys how I do that. So when I pop the cap here, I have two kind of mixers. I try to make sure they're kind of clean, but this one I just scoop it out with. This stuff's pretty good. I used the actual like Bondo brand once and it just was not super good. So we're gonna put that on there. I always like to recover it. I don't want a bunch of dirt stuff getting in there. And set it to the side later. And then for this, I just do one bead down the middle, nothing too crazy. Something like that. And what I like to do is, you don't want to stir it because it creates air pockets and little pinholes and things. Because I like to scoop like an S or figure 8 pattern like that, and just kind of fold it over and trying to work out any air that's in the filler. And this is just kind of what I've been doing this whole time. I still end up getting a little bit of pinholes, but not anything that can't be, you know, dealt with. So once we get this all mixed up, we have a couple minutes of work time. So I'm gonna do my absolute best to show you how I do it within our short window of work. But what helps is don't glob it up on your tray. Well, in my case, my notebook paper. Smooth it out like this. It does give you a little bit of extra work time just because the hardener is globbing up. And I'm just gonna put some of that on there because I know we're gonna need it. Not waste any. Come on. All right, so that's done. I'll get you guys up here. So what I like to do is, you gotta try and keep it all in the same pattern, but I'll fill up my scraper here and nice and even. I don't apply too much pressure because we've just got these little tiny pinholes that we're just trying to fill up. But the stuff is really smooth, which is why I really like it. Try and get some of that in there. And on these curves, I have to fan it and curve it in a little bit with your thumb. Want to make sure we get all the way to the end. That's where some of our worst offenders are as far as pinholes. That's where water over all these years has hit it. And come back over. We try and blend it so we don't have a bunch of ridges in it. And by ridges, I mean like these long skinny parts here. They're a little tougher to sand out. Get a little bit there. So that's just kind of how I work it in there. Nice skim coat, not anything beautiful. I'm sure I could be doing this way better. If you guys have tips or tricks or anything like that, I highly recommend you put them down in the comments. I'd love to hear what your little tricks are, or what you've learned, or if you've done any of it, or what you like to work with. So put that down in the comment section because we can all learn. So try to make sure it's nice and smooth. Try and fill up some more of these pinholes. Looks like we mixed up just a little too much, so we're just going to keep going until it starts to kind of get hard, and that's when you know that you're running out of time. But that's why we put it on there thin on our board. That way we have a little bit of extra work time. Try not to glob too much. When we went over that one hole, we like to squeeze it into the dent, into that little cavity. Again, I'm not a pro. Obviously there's things I'm doing wrong here, but we are starting to run out of time here, so I'm just gonna keep going. All right, so we're actually able to cover almost the whole area, and I actually measured that out pretty good. Only a little bit of extra. So what I do is I don't really start wiping this off until it sets. Once it's hard, it comes off in a big chunk, so it makes it a little easier to work with. So we're gonna wait a little bit, probably about 30 minutes, really let that set up before we start doing any sanding. I'm not gonna jump on the other side, because it's gonna be the same concept, but we just had a couple dents on the other side. This one was the big one. So we're gonna let this set up, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna start sanding it. So it's been a little over half an hour. Went and had some lunch, take a little break, but everything is nice and hard now. It's not tacky or anything like that, so it's all set up. What I'm using is a random orbital 6-inch air sander. This is from Harbor Freight. I think I spent 35 bucks on it. It was on sale. So when it spins, it shakes around and doesn't do a perfect circle. And that way it doesn't leave swirls in it. But we're using 180 grit sandpaper. I got a pack of 100 of them off Amazon for about 25 bucks. So we're gonna be using these. I've got 180, then I've also got 320. You could use, you know, 180 and 240, but 320 just to make safe. That we have plenty of fine scratches when we go to prime and everything. But what we're gonna do is take advantage of this nice flat surface. So when we're sanding, we're gonna keep it nice and even to really break down the stuff evenly. Now what you can do is you can get a big sanding block with some sandpaper on it and do it that way. But this has got a nice flat surface, so we're gonna take advantage of this. And it does have, it's a little loud, so I will say that when we use it, it's gonna be a little loud. But we're gonna start here, work our way across, following the curve, and then we'll go this way, and then back this way. The whole goal is to try and get it nice and smooth. Remember, all we want to do is fill in those little tiny pinholes. We don't want to have a whole bunch of body filler up here, so we'll try and get off as much as we can, but also got to keep it nice and even for any natural low spots that were there. And then we have also got this dent here that we're trying to fill in, so we want to make sure we keep it nice and flat and not dig, because if we start digging into it, we're going to eat out all of our filler, and we're back to square one. So we really got to make sure we keep it flat. So we're going to set you guys up, and we're just going to knock this out and start sanding it nice and flat. So we're making some progress, and you can see the difference of where we kind of started with this rough. You can see all the lines in it. Makes it a little bit harder to sand, so I'm still working on getting better at that. But you start to sand a little bit, and then you get down to this, where, get some of that out of our way. I'm gonna have to take this off. I thought I was gonna be able to work around it, but I'm gonna have to get rid of it, take it off so I can get underneath it. But some of the filler got underneath there. But we have the smooth top of the hood, no friction. If you remember, we had very sandpaper-ish like feel on here, and it's nice and smooth all the way down. You can see where the filler filled in some of those small pinholes there. A couple small low spots here, so I see a little bit of the filler remaining. But when you put your hand over it, and it's nice and smooth, you should not be able to feel where it starts and where it ends. So if you feel like a line or a ridge along any of these borders, you gotta keep going to really feather it in and really kind of fade it. But you can see where it's thinner in some spots, but thicker in others. There are just some low spots, but all I do is take that sander back and forth, make it nice and smooth, and we have no edges. So hopefully when we go to prime this, we'll cover all of our bodywork first in primer, because that'll soak it in, and then we'll go back over, once that flashes, we'll go back over and do the whole thing. But we're just gonna keep working here on this side and get some progress, but this is kind of the end result we're going with. Part of why all these other panels look all spotty the way they do like Dalmatians. So all nice and flowing together. There is like a ridge light here, right here, but I think it's part of the body panel itself, just from when it was made. So I'm not super worried about smoothing that out. I'm just gonna leave that the way it is. We're just gonna keep going. So making progress.
1 hour later.
Well, we ended up getting this sanded up pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. This is where our dent was. You can kind of see the outline of it there. And when you put your hand over it, you can't feel it. There's like a little high spot, and that's what this big shiny spot is. It's a high spot. You can feel that on your hand, but nothing crazy. I mean, it's gonna match the rest of the car, so it fits right in. Still feels really good all here. Looks like we've got a little touch up on the inside of our lip here. But all along this side, nice and smooth. You can see all of our little pinholes all filled in with filler, nice and flat. Got a couple holes there I gotta work on. But nice and smooth. No big sandpapery sound. You may have seen me use, where did I put it? Here it is. This. Now this is actually a sanding block that you can get, and it's kind of spongy. So it's got some contour to it, and all I did was take a used pad and stuck it on there because it's got a sticky back, and I use this as a sand block to help curve into these corners. So if you push into it, you see it curves into that and continues that shape. It's really good for like these edges, so I've got to get some little tiny pinholes out. There's a couple pinholes there, got to get those out. But stuff like this is really good for getting into these really tight curves, forming into them or over them. You can curve it the other way like that, and it'll follow the curve of it. So if you just push on it evenly, it'll follow that contour and get a nice smooth finish. A couple very light spots here, but it's again very nice smooth surface, and I think that will paint well. We'll probably go around with our little block and clean up this edge because I think there's a little bit of filler that dangled down. But we basically got this side done. There's not really anything else on this side I'm really super worried about. We may want to touch up this part that we did that hammer and dolly work. I can feel it's a little wavy, so we'll probably do a little bit there. And then on this side, the front, again, we want to do the same thing. Got a lot of pinholes. We want to make sure we fill all those in. Very kind of textured, especially on this side here. You can feel it where all this dark area is. That's all that pinhole. So we're going to come along here. There's one spot here that we had to work out. I think there's another one right here. Kind of see the discoloration. That's all I think we had on this side. So we've got these two spots, and then from basically the same spot here over and then down. So we're just going to repeat the same process, and then I'm going to have to work on getting this off. I have a strong suspicion I'm going to snap off the threads on the back. That needs to come out, but we're going to take this off as well, get underneath there and get all this last bit of paint off of there. But we're just going to do the same thing we did here, over here, and then when we're ready to primer it, I'll bring you guys back. It's going to be just a little bit, but I want to make sure it's all nice and good to go. And then we can start shooting it to make it look halfway decent.
Several days later.
All right, so we were able to finish the other side of the hood and get that all nice and sanded smooth. And what we did is we started to primer it. So what I used is this first level of the self-etching primer in the can. It's a little darker, but I used this on just the filler parts. So all the sections that we actually did the filler on, I used that. It was really good for filling in the little pinholes and stuff. So we did a good job of that with what little bit we had. And then I came over top with just regular primer, and that's how we got it to be this nice light gray color. I wanted to make sure we use the self-etching on just the filler parts, and if we had any that I might have missed, where we had like the little pinholes or little pitting from the water resting on the metal, to get that treated as well. But we're getting the hood to dry here, and we can see we still have some wet spots there, but this is the underside, and the top spent plenty of time curing as well, but it's looking super good. And it's a little dirty here and there, but it's looking really good, much better than what we started with in the beginning. Now, is it perfect? No. I mean, there's little stuff here and there that's coming through, you know, like a little spot there. But otherwise, it looks pretty good. Don't mind my dirty fingerprints on it. But it looks pretty good. Some dirt and stuff on there. But it's pretty consistent, nice and even. There are some tiger stripes in it. You can see there's dark spots and light spots. But when we go to paint it, that'll all get covered. But everything's all primered, so it's all an even coat. All I did on the inside here was wire wheel it. I didn't go and do body work in here. I just wanted to get it nice and even so we could shoot this with some color and call it good enough. I'd rather just have the color on the underside of the hood rather than doing just black. I think that'll really help out with the overall look. So we're making some progress here. We also did our other pieces in between this one drying and doing body work. So we were able to primer all of our pieces. Again, are they perfect? No. But are they much better than they were? Absolutely. You can even see here, it's like a little bit of roughness, a little dent there, a little bit of stuff there, but still, I mean, it's better than it was. And this one had a huge dent in it, so a little wavy still, but way better than it was, and it's going to do the job for us. We go to paint it, it'll look fine. So we're just going to let this keep drying. We're going to get this flipped over, and then I'll show you guys the top side once this side dries. And after a little bit of drying, we were able to flip it over. Now what I've got here is a 3M red Scotch-Brite. When the time comes to actually paint this, we'll use this to kind of rough it up. This is the equivalent of like a 220 grit, 240, somewhere around there. And we'll be able just to lightly scuff this up, just to get rid of some of the roughness of the primer. And then we'll be able to shoot it with paint when we get to that point. So always good to have some of these on hand. You can also do that between coats of primer. So if you want to do another coat, you can do that and it'll scuff it up, give it some more to adhere to. And I also use that before we shot the primer on there on the whole surface, just to make sure it's pretty even and consistent, especially on that self-etching stuff. I kind of roughed that up so this other primer would adhere to that too. But the top looks much, much better. We did remove our center trim on there, and we're going to have to, unfortunately, replace it. As you can see right in the middle, if I don't die on that cord, right there, that it's rusted through. So we're going to have to replace that, so no saving it, unfortunately. Would be good some like wall art maybe, so we'll keep it for that. But we're just not going to be able to use it. So we can see just where we started and where we are now. Big, big difference. Again, it's not perfect, but it definitely does the job, and it looks a lot better. I can see a couple areas I'm gonna need to touch up here and here. Looks like a little bit of it came off there as well, so I need to respray that. But don't mind my dirty fingerprints from flipping this thing over. But it looks really good. Do have a little bit of striping in it from the spray can, but when we go to paint it, it'll cover all that. So just a little bit of touch-ups. But overall, I'm really happy with that. Well, with that, I think that's going to be the end of this episode. This is the same principle that we did here. We're going to apply it to the doors, and the cab, and the truck bed. That's really all that's left. And we have the running boards too, so we need to do those also. But all the fenders are done and taken care of. The front valence in front of the radiator is taken care of as well. The inner fenders are taken care of, and those have been treated with the primer on the inside, like the engine bay side. And then the underside of the wheel well actually has bed liner sprayed inside of that, so that'll take care of all of that. So there's still a lot to go, but we're going to be doing this process on every single panel. So this is just an example of what I'm doing. Again, I'm not a body person by any means. I think this kind of shows you. But if you're just trying to get by and make it look half decent, you know, hey, this is just fine. You can have different primer options you can get in the Harbor Freight gun. I just like the spray cans because it's just easier to use. And I haven't had much luck out of a spray gun. I just don't think the nozzles are quite big enough. So, but yeah, this is a pretty straightforward process. It's just very time consuming, and that's why there's been some spacing in the video. So again, I apologize for that, but this is just part of the process. So we're just gonna start moving on to the doors and the cab and things as well. The cab needs floors, it needs a cab corner, and we also need to mend up the firewall. There's a lot of holes in the firewall, so we gotta take care of that. All the sheet metal is gonna be tough. because I just don't have a true gas MIG welder. I just have a flux core, and so it blows through that sheet metal. I've just got to find something thicker, probably run to the store and find something a little bit better for that. That way I don't blow through it as much. So, but we'll just see how it goes. But again, just more of this stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps the channel, so please make sure you do that. We also have a ton of useful links down in the description for our merchandise website if you want to check that out. Get yourself some gear there. We are working on a design for a shirt for this truck, so be on the lookout for that. We've also got memberships. If you want to be part of membership, get early access to videos, behind the scenes pictures and things like that. You can join our memberships, all sorts of good stuff, and links to everything else is down there as well. Anyway, I'm ready for some dinner. So with that, that's going to be the end of it. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see ya.